Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a little bit of a different video here today. Today I'm going to be talking about some TBR plans. This is sort of a video of shame. I have been reading a lot of science fiction and fantasy, as one does in this corner of BookTube, but I've been trying to diversify my reading more, just in terms of the types of books, the types of fiction that I've been reading lately. And one specific genre that I used to really love, that I haven't touched as much, is historical fiction. When I was younger, I read not exclusively historical fiction, but a lot of older classical and often written for young boys historical fiction. So think Robert Louis Stevenson with Treasure Island, Kidnapped, The Black Arrow, a lot of G.A. Henty, The Scottish Chiefs by Jane Porter, R.M. Ballantyne, some of Sir Walter Scott's books, even some more modern books like The Killer Angels by Michael Jourer. And I really loved what I read when I was younger. It was definitely a favorite genre for me. But I haven't read a lot of historical fiction in a while. A little bit here and there, but not much. A few months ago, I read City of Thieves by David Benioff. But I want to get back into reading it more, and especially as you hear hype for certain books and as you hear people share excitement and how good certain books are, or even just, oh, there's a novel about that historical person, how fascinating, I want to read about that. It's piqued my interest. So today I've got a sort of an exhaustive list here. We're going to separate this up a little bit. We're going to talk about books that I hope to read very soon in the not too distant future, and then some more that are maybe long-term plans. Some of these I physically own, and then some of them I do not yet. So we'll have a variety there. But we'll start with the book that sort of launched all of this, which is The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, which is not just one of the most famous historical fiction novels. It's probably one of the most famous novels written in the last century. Mammoth bestseller. Most people watching this have probably at least heard of Pillars of the Earth. I am about a third of the way through reading this as of right now, and I have really enjoyed it. The book has sort of an intimidating reputation just because of the sheer length of it. This version of the novel is almost 1,000 pages. But in terms of the accessibility, the writing, the structure of the book, it's been very straightforward so far. It's been very easy to follow, and I've been very much enjoying my time with the first 30% of it. This novel is famously about a fictional village in England called Kingsbridge, as various characters around the village come together to build a cathedral. And Follett sort of paints it in a mosaic style where we follow one character for a while and then go to another one and follow them, and their lives intersect. So Tom is a mason and a master builder who obviously, if you know it's about building a cathedral and then the novel starts with this master builder, you know he's going to be involved. One of the leading priests in the area, his name is Philip, Brother Philip, is one of the main characters that we're following. And so anyway, very much enjoying this, but I'm looking forward to what maybe some of the next historical fiction reads that I'll be getting to would be. And one of the other ones that is probably just as famous as Pillars of the Earth, if not maybe even a little bit more, is Shogun by James Clavell. And the reason why I'm bringing this one up next and why it's sort of in my immediate plans is I think I might be doing a buddy read of this one coming up soon. I won't drop names or dates because nothing's settled yet, but Shogun, which I think is actually longer than Pillars of the Earth, is one of these mammoth chonker of a book that's famous within the genre that I haven't read. It sounds interesting. I don't know much about it other than Japan, Englishmen coming over, being integrated in Japanese culture, I think fighting in a war. I don't know much more than that, but its reputation precedes it. So it's definitely of interest to me. One that I know a little bit more about is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. So Wolf Hall is one of those novels that's universally praised. It won the Booker Prize. It's the first in a trilogy about Thomas Cromwell, and Book 2 won the Booker Prize as well. Book 3 was nominated, but I don't think it, as I recall, it didn't win. So it has high literary acclaim, but also just sold very well and is very popular in terms of modern historical fiction, modern classics. So I've been interested in this one. I've heard that it is challenging, that there are difficult parts to it, but I read the first chapter, really enjoyed it, found the writing to be engaging, beautiful, and I found a friend who I think would be willing to read this one with me as well. I've heard it in terms of fantasy readers talking about this novel. I've heard some people call it the Malazan of historical fiction, which at that point we're just throwing buzzwords together, but I think what was meant by that is Malazan has this high reputation for being challenging, for being difficult, but also very, very good. And Wolf Hall, there's a similar reputation there. Yeah, and I do like the Tudor era that this book is set in. I'm not an expert in it by any means, but I have, kind of a basic familiarity with the era, the Renaissance, the Reformation, all of that. And so Wolf Hall, for its high reputation as well, I'm very interested in. Another one that would sort of be along the same lines is The Agony and the Ecstasy by Irving Stone. This is a novel by about Michelangelo. This novel I first heard about because there was a movie made of it back in the day starring Rex Harrison as the Pope and Charlton Heston as Michelangelo. Now, I've not seen the movie, but when I was younger, because of Ben-Hur and My Fair Lady, and a few other movies, Rex Harrison and Charlton Heston were two of my favorite actors. So I was like, wait, they were in a movie about Michelangelo and there's a book? I'll grab the book. So I got this, and I think I'm going to try getting another booktuber. I think I have somebody else that we've been chatting about maybe reading this one together at some time as well. For this one deals a lot with, as you would expect, with it being about Michelangelo, the nature of art and art coming from the artist and within and all of that type of stuff. So this one, I'm not as sure if it's going to be like a 5 out of 5 stars or not. I've heard a few people, I think, was it Christopher Russell as a booktuber that I was watching, and he did not like this book. But that's okay. I've heard enough people recommend it that I'm still very much interested in reading The Agony and the Ecstasy as well. Next, and you've seen this on a few TBRs, so I'll apologize ahead of time, but Aztec by Gary Jennings. Gary Jennings is one of those famous historical fiction authors from former decades whose popularity has not carried over in quite the same way. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because there haven't been big adaptations of his work. Maybe it's because there's not audiobooks of it. I know some of his stuff is no longer reprinted. But Aztec is his most famous novel. Jordan from iWizard, in his video about it, described it as Apocalypto meets The Name of the Wind with a bit of Avatar in there. And he used a few other things that he threw in. But all of that sounds very interesting to me. I don't know much about the Aztec Empire, and I know Gary Jennings did extensive research when writing this novel. So this is one of those ones as well. With historical fiction, more so than a lot of other genres, I feel like it really can justify being long, being drawn out, covering large amounts of world building, just by nature of the genre. I think it can justify it more, even better than fantasy can. So I'm willing to pick up a big, thick book like this and roll with the punches a little bit more. So we'll see more Gary Jennings coming up on this list. Let me see here. One other one that I'll list is Augustus by John Williams. So this is a novel, I believe it's written in an epistolary format, so letters between, I think, the Emperor Augustus and then some of his friends and family. I read, obviously, the famous novel by John Williams is Stoner. I read that last year and enjoyed it, but I'm interested in reading more of John Williams' work, and there's a few friends of mine in this circle of BookTube who really liked Augustus, and some who even liked Augustus more than Stoner. So I want to check this one out. This one's also pretty short, and it's in a similar vein to I, Claudius by Robert Graves, which is about the Emperor Claudius. So once again, this is sort of like a confessional video because I'm showing my ignorance, of things I haven't read. It's like, wow, these are like the titans of the genre. These are if you've read historical fiction, it's, I, Claudius and Wolf Hall and Shogun. So I haven't read them and would like to get to them. Let's see here. What are some other ones? Well, let's pick this one up, actually. This is Bzantium by Stephen R. Lawhead. So I've read the Pendragon Cycle by Stephen Lawhead, which could be argued as historical fiction. I've classified it as fantasy because, God steps in. There's druids that perform magical adjacent things. So, and whether or not Arthur is real or not is enough of a debate that, it's probably a fantasy series, but Lawhead has also written historical fiction. He wrote a Robin Hood series. There I go talking about characters who may or may not be historical again. He wrote a novel about St. Patrick. I'm trying to remember if there's any others, but then this is well rooted in historical fiction. It's about an Irish monk traveling to, well, Bzantium and the adventures that he has along the way. Now, I've heard this, once again bringing it back to the fantasy comparisons, I've heard this book compared to the Sailing to Bzantium and Lord of Emperors, that duology by Guy Gavriel Kay. But the funny thing is that Lawhead actually wrote this novel before Guy Gavriel Kay did. So I'm interested to see if there's any similarities there. Stephen Lawhead has said that this is in contention for being his favorite novel that he's written. And I liked the Pendragon Cycle a lot. I liked it more than I think a lot of people will. But I've only read that by him, and I can't really call an author a favorite if I've only read one series by them, if they've written a lot of other stuff. So Bzantium by Stephen Lawhead, I've heard it's one of his best novels. An Irish monk who goes on an adventure, becomes a sailor, a spy, a Viking, and a Saracen, and a warrior, as it says here on the back, and finally becomes a man. Well, that sounds great. That sounds like a great adventure novel. It's big, it's a thick novel as well, but it's on the list here. This has also shown up on a few TBR, so I won't overly prolong this, but I'll say I Am a Barbarian by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I really liked Edgar Rice Burroughs when I was younger, especially, and so hearing that he wrote a novel about a gladiator fighting Caligula, that just sounds like a lot of fun to me. So I definitely want to read this by the end of the year, and hopefully, I know this novel is not necessarily very historically accurate. But that's not why I read Edgar Rice Burroughs. So I'm still counting it as historical fiction, even if it's maybe not the most strictly accurate. Another one, since we were talking about Lawhead, I'll put this up here. The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell. I meant to read this earlier in the year. Some things changed and I was unable to get to it. So I've not read Bernard Cornwell. I do have the first of his Richard Sharp novels, Sharp's Tiger. I want to read this one as well. But the Warlord Chronicles, I picked those up when I was a teenager, just because they were Arthurian and a trilogy, and it looked interesting, but I never read them. So this has been on my radar for a while, and I've heard mostly ubiquitous praise for this trilogy. Next up on the list is going to be Dear and Glorious Physician by Taylor Caldwell. And I have to admit, this is a historical fiction novel that is about St. Luke, who wrote the Gospel of Luke and then also the Book of Acts in the Bible. I had not heard of this novel before, but Steve Donahue mentioned it in his historical fiction starter kit video that he did, and it sounded really interesting. It sounds like Taylor Caldwell has written a lot, but he said that this is the best of her work, and I don't know how high of a priority this one is, but it's at least one that I'm interested in. One that is more of a priority, and was also recommended by Donahue in that video, and a close author friend of mine, A.C. Wilson, is the Matry and Aubryn novels. They're the Master and Commander books. I forget what the technical series name is, but the Master and Commander books by Patrick O'Brien. There's a lot of these, but I've been told they're easy to read, that in terms of historical fiction, they're some of the best stuff that's been written. A.C. Wilson highly praised these and has really been trying to get me to read them. I know that the Sharp books are sort of written as like the rifleman experience in the Napoleonic Wars, and the Master and Commander books are like the seafaring experience of the Napoleonic Wars. So yeah, there's already dozens and dozens of books on this list, but I would like to read the Master and Commander books as well. One last recommendation that I'll give here that I don't own physically is Dreaming the Eagle by Amanda Scott. Now this I first heard about from, I believe the brothers Gwynn recommended this quartet of novels about Boudica and the Boudican Rebellion. Now, I know some people read this recently and weren't so hot on it. I'm still interested enough in it that I'd like to read it. One of the things that I like doing with a lot of historical fiction is sort of having it be a gateway drug into learning more about that period of history. And the Boudican Rebellion, I'm ashamed to say, I wasn't really familiar with it until hearing them talk about it through this novel. So, yeah, so that's why it's on the list here. Next, we'll go through a few final ones here. This is Silence by Shusaku Endo. Don't don't know how to pronounce that. This is the movie tie-in version. I saw the movie, really enjoyed it. I've heard people also say that the book is better. I don't know if that's true or not. All I know is that the book is not going to have Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver, or Liam Neeson. So that's a shame. But this is a novel about Jesuit priests proselytizing, spreading the gospel in Japan, in feudal Japan, and being persecuted for it. And the converts that they make being brutally persecuted for their faith, and them dealing with that crisis of faith. Do you recant and save people's lives, or do you hold to what you believe and have you and your family and friends be executed? So a lot of heavy stuff covered in this novel, but I'm interested in reading it. On a bit of a lighter note, and once again, going back to these thick chonkers of historical fiction that are classics, Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I have nothing to say except to play shameful music that I haven't read this. I do own this one on audiobook as well, so there's a high chance that I would get to it sooner just by listening to it. But up there with Shogun and Pillars of the Earth, people who read it often claim it's one of their favorite books of all time. So I'm interested in reading it. Once again, we'll have Gary Jennings pop back on the list with The Journeyer. This is his Marco Polo novel. To shout out Steve Donahue once again, Donahue said that between Aztec and The Journeyer, he thought The Journeyer was better from Gary Jennings. I watched a movie about Marco Polo when I was younger, and that always fascinated me. So reading a full novel about him, especially one this long, I think will definitely be interesting. And then sort of to go along with Pillars of the Earth, we have The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. One of the people who really pushed me to read Pillars of the Earth, said it's great, you should check it out, is indie author Andrew D. Meredith. Getting tongue-tied this deep into the video. He said it inspired a bunch of his own writing, and he thought I would appreciate it, and so far he's definitely been correct, and he recommended this as a follow-up to Pillars of the Earth, The Name of the Rose. I've seen the Sean Connery movie, so I generally know what it's about, but I've also heard people say that this is beautifully written, is a translated work, but the translation is excellent, at least what I've been told, and it's like a monk abbey murder mystery novel, which sounds great to me. So it is also on the list here. And I'm going to close out with one that's a little atypical, and that is the play A Man for All Seasons is famous, as well as, I'm trying to remember what else this man wrote. I'll just stick with that. I think this is by the same guy who did the play A Man for All Seasons, and that is Robert Bolt also wrote the script for The Mission. The movie about priests ministering to natives in South America, and then also fighting and dying and defending those natives, those converts, from being kidnapped by slave traders. And about a slave trader who becomes a priest and then begins to defend the very natives that he used to enslave and kidnap to try to pay for his sins. I loved the movie, and the fact that Robert Bolt, the screenwriter, turned it into a novel, I don't know if it still counts as a movie novelization or not, but I'm still interested in reading it. So anyway, guys, that's enough reading. I could read nothing but historical fiction for a year, and I wouldn't be caught up. But these are at least the ones that are on my radar. So if there are big glaring holes of things that I've missed or things that I should be putting on my radar, let me know. What of these books have you read, and which ones do you recommend? I've said here which ones I'm getting to next, but I'm really excited, especially for Wolf Hall, for Shogun, and yeah, I've got to read that Edgar Rice Burroughs book soon. And who knows, if I'm in the right mood, reading something like Lonesome Dove sooner rather than later might not be a bad option. But so if you haven't read anything that I've talked about here, you should at least go and read The Killer Angels. It's probably the best book you'll read all month. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one, hopefully about books that I've read. Take care.